Shallow water holds its breath. A plain of pale sand lies unmarked between scattered coral heads, a blank page in the morning tide. A shadow the size of a hand drifts low, then stops. Fins begin to whisper. Grains lift and spin in a controlled storm, each pulse carving a groove so clean it looks drawn. The shape expands, ridges rising, valleys darkening, spokes finding a rhythm, as if guided by a compass no one can see. Hours pass. The design sharpens. A central basin forms, ringed by scalloped dunes, the whole circle measuring wider than a man is tall. From above, it reads like intention made visible. Geometric sand patterns laced with symmetry and purpose. From the side, it is only a small fish moving sand, one mouthful at a time, one fanning stroke after another. Beauty accrues in silence. A current rolls through and threatens to smear a ridge. The builder corrects, fanning again, beveling the edge so the flow splits and settles. The structure persists, precise and untraceable to any mark on the horizon. Near dusk, another shadow appears, pauses above the circle, and drifts on. By morning, half the ridges are sharpened again, as if the night had never tested them. The artist remains unnamed. The author vanished into sand-colored light. The name comes later. A small Japanese pufferfish, a male, an underwater architect with a short life and a long patience. In these coastal shallows, in a narrow band of depth where light still writes detail, he builds a circle to attract a mate. The work takes days, often a week, of continual adjustments, interrupted by patrols and brief meals, and resumed with the same measured strokes. This is a pufferfish mating display, but it is also engineering. The outer ring rises into soft dunes. The inner spokes sweep toward a central crater lined with the finest grains he can collect. As a courtship device, the display is both spectacle and signal. Health written as stamina, coordination expressed as symmetry. In the language of marine courtship behavior, the display says, "This site can cradle eggs and feed them. This partner can maintain it." The patterns have a second function. Hydrodynamics matters to embryos. Fine sediments trap nutrients and stabilize temperature. Ridges modulate flow, channeling currents toward the center, while slowing turbulence that would scour eggs free. What looks like underwater fish art is also a nursery built at scale. When a female approves the design, she settles to lay eggs in the center. When she leaves, the male guards and tends them. He keeps the geometry intact for as long as it matters. Then the circle yields to weather and time, erased to a pale memory in sand. The phrase has become a signal for wonder. Japanese pufferfish circles. Divers share images. Documentaries slow the labor until each fin beat reads as a line in a drawing. The effect is evergreen because it complicates expectations. A small animal composes a cathedral and then watches currents take it. The result feels like it is rewriting what we thought we knew about where beauty belongs. The puzzle that anchors this story sits at the center of the design. How does a fish without tools, landmarks, or a ruler achieve such precise geometry without visual reference points? The bottom is empty of cues. No stakes, no shadows that stay, no fixed border to measure against. Visibility shifts with light and plankton. Waves smear the sand. Yet the circle closes on itself with near-perfect radial symmetry. Spokes keep their spacing over a diameter that can exceed 2 meters. Ridges hold consistent height relative to the fish's body, and angles remain steady as the days pass. Even when a day's work is partially erased by wind chop or surge, the rebuild restores the same contours and proportions. The shape is not traced, it is generated. The body that builds it carries specialized tools. Pectoral fins hover like hands, cupping and fanning with microcontrol that lifts sand in thin sheets rather than clumsy clouds. The tail drives short bursts that seat ridges. The mouth nips individual shells and pebbles, placing them like anchors on crest edges where their mass resists drift. Eyes ride high, sampling contrast as ridges cast slight shadows across valleys. The lateral line, a sensory canal that reads water motion, detects flow around each ridge, providing immediate feedback. Too tall, and the flow separates. Too low, and the valley fills. The fish responds with another pass, another adjustment. Construction is not a single sweep, but a loop of sensing and correction. Patterns appear in the builder's path. He returns to the same sectors at the same intervals, spacing spokes with a near-constant angular turn. The route is not random, yet it tolerates disturbance. When a crab crosses and collapses a ridge, the next circuit includes a repair without derailing the sequence. When a predator cruises through, the builder flattens and vanishes in place, then resumes precisely where he left off. To a camera, the routine reads like a clock. To a map, it reads like an algorithm. The paradox deepens in the center. The basin holds the finest grains available, sifted by repeated fanning and selective transport. Fine sand is both fragile and valuable. It needs shelter from stray gusts. The fish engineers a ripple of ridges to break the flow before it reaches the center, creating a low turbulence pocket where eggs can rest. No template lies in the sand, no grid marks off distances. The precision is born of motion and feedback alone, or so the scene implies. Impossible to explain outright, and yet too consistent to be coincidence. Scientists still debate the rule set. Some point to a fixed motor program, an innate sequence of turns and distances generated by neural circuits that act like a metronome. Others emphasize sensory feedback, vision for contrast, the lateral line for flow, graviception for slope. A third line of thought highlights environment. Circles align with prevailing currents, suggesting orientation is calibrated at the start and maintained by constant correction. None of these lines cancel the others, and all carry evidence. One hypothesis begins in the brainstem. A central pattern generator produces repeated rhythmic movements, oscillations of fin and tail, paired to a set angular increment during each sector sweep. By keeping the turn angle constant and the stride length stable, radial symmetry emerges from iteration. Under this view, geometry is the shadow of tempo. The circle is a byproduct of a song the body knows how to play. A second hypothesis centers on feedback. Vision tracks the contrast between ridge tops and valley shadows, allowing the builder to space features by what they look like rather than by absolute distance. Meanwhile, the lateral line reads flow over crests as a tactile map of success. If turbulence increases, the ridge is too huious, too sharp. If flow hums smoothly, height and spacing are near optimum. The fish circles, senses, and edits. Over hours, a convergent solution appears. Ridges split flow, valleys trap fines, the center calms. A third proposal adds orientation cues. Circles often face into the dominant current, with steeper ridges upstream and gentler slopes downstream. That gradient could be a design to harvest fines. The upstream edge breaks energy. The downstream side collects fallout. How orientation is set remains open. Some suggest skylight polarization patterns, which penetrate shallow water and provide a stable compass on clear days. Others point to magnetoreception, known in several teleost fishes, as a baseline bearing when light fails. Evidence in this species is sparse, and the idea remains a cautionary placeholder. The simpler explanation, currents felt through the lateral line during initial passes, may be sufficient. A fourth angle looks at choice and quality. Females inspect circles and prefer sharper, more complex builds. That selection pressure would, over generations, favor males whose motor programs and sensory thresholds produce circles with tighter spacing and cleaner basins. In this view, underwater fish art is evolutionary math, ornament honest enough to cost energy and time, function enough to nourish eggs, and variability enough for choice to act upon. The display says something true because it is hard to fake. None of these possibilities excludes the others. Together, they sketch a builder that marries instinct with measurement, a clock that keeps time while listening for its own echo. The circle persists because the loop persists. Act, sense, adjust, repeat. The design is resilient because the rules are simple and layered. Disturb a ridge, and the error shows up immediately in flow. Dim the light, and the lateral line carries more weight. Turn the current, and orientation shifts as the next passes adapt. What looks like a blueprint may be a handful of rules played long enough to look like intention. The circle's ephemerality is not a flaw, but part of the message. The male maintains order until it matters. Until a mate arrives, until eggs lie in the center and need shelter, until embryos hatch and drift. Then the geometry can go. A storm erases a week in an hour. A spring tide smears perfection into a low, equal plane. The artist does not grieve. He starts again on a fresh patch, sometimes meters away, sometimes within the ghost of the old. The sea takes, and the sea offers new canvas. The cycle feels ancient. It also feels new each time the camera returns to a blank floor and watches form appear. Elsewhere on the plane, other builders work. The spacing between circles is not accidental. Territories separate to prevent courtship interference and sand theft. Borders are patrolled with short rushes and flares of body. When two builders meet at the edge, they posture, puff slightly, and break off. The art is a signal. The boundary is part of its frame. From the air, a drone over a clear morning, dozens of circles dot the seabed like coins. Some are crisp, fresh, and tall. Others sag at the edges, aging into anonymity. The tide writes and erases. The fish write back. No mark persists. The effect is cumulative only in memory and film. The terms that carry the story through search engines, Japanese pufferfish circles, geometric sand patterns, pufferfish mating display. Trace lines into this scene, but not all the way down. The closer the lens moves, the more the question bends. Can art be born from instinct alone? If art means excess function, ornament beyond the minimum, then this qualifies. If art means message sent in form, the case is stronger still. But if art implies awareness of audience, intention to move another's mind, The sand hesitates to answer. The builder works. A female chooses. Eggs rest, currents take. The loop completes without commentary. Nobody knows why certain circles carry small additions, shell fragments arranged in specific arcs, pebbles planted in lines. Some are ballast, some appear decorative. Scientists still debate whether these features improve flow or simply amplify contrast through texture. The data lean toward function. The eyes insist on beauty. It is not a contradiction. In water, the two often coincide. The camera drops to the level of a fin. A single stroke lifts a silk of sand and lays it one ridge over. The builder pauses, a hovering comma in the sentence, and then continues. A blenny peeks over a crest and vanishes. A crab writes an accidental line and is edited out by the next pass. Time compresses. The circle sharpens. The center darkens with fines. The spokes find their final spacing. By evening, the circle appears complete. By dawn, it needs work again. The sea is a moving critic. The final hours of courtship read like calm after labor. A female visits, slow and cautious, tracing the circumference, sampling the center with pectoral fins, reading the hydrodynamic silence that predicts safety for eggs. Acceptance looks like settling. Rejection looks like a slow turn away. When acceptance comes, it is brief. Eggs adhere in the basin, a pale scatter under a vigilant male. He hovers, fans lightly for oxygen, and repels intruders. Geometry serves life. The purpose that built the circle holds it a little longer. Can art be born from instinct alone? The sand says yes. A small fish, unarmed, easily overlooked, moves water and grains until form appears that pleases a mate and calms a flow. The circle is not a signature that endures. It is an event that passes. It shows that meaning can live in work that vanishes, that precision can rise where no ruler fits, that a compass can be a body listening to currents. The title names an architect. The ocean names a process. Together they make a scene that keeps returning in images and in minds, impossible to explain at a glance, and yet exact enough to repeat across seasons. By the time the last ridge relaxes, the next plane is already waiting. The builder will find it by feel and light. The first groove will look like nothing. Then the next will rhyme with it. Soon the circle will be there again, a brief geometry beneath waves. Search terms travel faster than currents. Underwater fish art, marine courtship behavior, Japanese pufferfish circles, and still they lag behind the simple truth rushing over the sand. Beauty can be practical and still be beautiful, and a life can leave no monument and still rewrite what we thought we knew about the forms nature is willing to make.